Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Metropolitan Transit Commission meeting of Wednesday, October the 25th, and I want to call that meeting to order. Let's begin with introductions. Everyone, I also want to say, though, that we have people that are voting members. We have people that are part of our discussion and work with us on transit over the county. And then we also have people that are watching us just because it's live streaming on our various platforms. So thank you to all of you that are joining us. And I see Mayor Reed and say, hello, Mayor Reed. It was good, always good to see that you're joining us. So I'm calling the meeting to order. Let's start with the introductions from the voting members or their alternates. So can we start with Mr. Lathrop?
Good evening, Tony Lathrop, NCDOT. Mark Fitzgerald,
City of Charlotte.
Anthony Roberts, Town of Huntersville.
Rusty Knox, Mayor Davison.
Elger Waslowski, City of Concord.
Patrick Baker, City Attorney.
Brent Cagle, Interim CEO, CATS.
Vi Lyles, Mayor of Charlotte.
John Higdon, Mayor of Matthews.
Lee Altman, Mecklenburg County Commissioner.
Dina DiOrio, Mecklenburg County.
Brad Simmons, Mayor of Town of Mint Hill.
Melinda Bales, Mayor of Huntersville.
Brian Welch, Mint Hill Town Manager.
Andrew Grant, Town Manager, Cornelius.
Jack Edwards, Mayor of Pineville.
Ryan Spitzer, Town Manager of Pineville.
All right. And now we'll have those that are streaming with us. I've already recognized Mayor Reed. Is there anyone else that is joining us by streaming or through technology? Okay. With that, we'll go ahead, and I want to say thank you. If none of our non-voting members are able to introduce themselves, I'm not sure if that's an issue of technology or just the time that we have. Okay, so now we will introduce our advisory board representatives. There we are.
Jared Herms, co-chairman of TSAC.
Edward Tillman, co-chair of CTAG.
All right. Is there anyone that hasn't been acknowledged that should? I know that we have Mayor Pro Tem Braxton Winston here joining us from the Charlotte City Council. Anyone else, any other elected official joining us today? All right, thank you very much. So the first thing that we have is the adoption of the minutes of the September 27, 2023 meeting. The minutes are on page 5 through 13 in the briefing book. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so now that we have a motion, are there any questions or any corrections to be noted? Hearing no questions or comments or corrections, all in favor of adoption of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone in opposition? All right. Our next item is public comment. Do we have anyone that would like to speak to us in the public comment section, Mr. Ford?
Public comments, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you very much. So hopefully we continue to get people to come in, but we've got some great representatives from our citizen organizations and part of that. All right, so the first item that we will have is the Interim Chief Executive Officer's report. Mr. Cagle?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. So to keep this brief, starting on page 15 and running through page 32 of your packets are the updates on the safety reports, the ridership reports, and the sales tax report. I would take any questions if there are any, but again, these are the same reports that we provide monthly on safety, ridership, and sales tax. I will note on ridership, we continue to see increases in ridership steadily. Year over year, we are still below where we were pre-COVID, but we are seeing some positive trends really across all of our modes of transportation post-COVID. Also on ridership, a big part of ridership is missed trips and frequency. We talked about that at length, both of those things at length throughout the sessions today. I will say our missed trips little bit up from last month, but still below the 5% threshold that we have established. They were around 4% this month in September, about 3% the prior month. And then sales tax reporting, you will note that I asked staff to go back to the standard reporting that we have always been doing, or the standard formatting for the sales tax reporting that CATS had always been doing for probably as long as there has been an MTC in this report out there, but long before me, anyway. Again, we were looking at the state statute, and while it seems a bit counterintuitive, it is in the state statute this way: to count total population, in effect doubling the total population by counting Mecklenburg County total population once, and then counting all of the towns, including Charlotte, as additional population above and beyond the Mecklenburg County population. So that results in a total population for this calculation of 2,175,457, using those population numbers and then converting as percent of total. The rest of the revenues on a monthly and then annual basis are allocated accordingly. I apologize, it was my mistake last month for alternating from that, and I apologize for that.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Cagle?
Actually, I do have a question. I'm just looking at the DSS trips, and it looks like there's some pretty significant swings from year to date for fiscal year 23-24. We were 420 last year, 5,316 this year, and if you look at the monthly numbers, 329 versus 112. Can you talk to me a little bit about those wild swings in the DSS transportation?
Yes, ma'am. So this has been something we've been looking into because we had seen the swings. I think Ms. Altman had asked about it last month as well. It is not that the ridership is swinging. As we understand it, we're still trying to get to the bottom of it with the county. But as we understand it, it's not that the ridership is swinging. The county only reports to us the riders that are associated with dollars spent on the sales tax revenue. And because they have been using, I believe, COVID money, or had been in the past, there had been no reporting of the passengers. It's a reporting issue that we are working on with county. It is not reflective of swings in ridership. It's reflective of the funding that has been utilized over the last few years.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for Mr. Cagle? All right, thank you very much, Brent. I want to say that before this meeting, we had an all-day-long session regarding budget and operations, and I want to say thank you to the team for the work that they did, and I believe it was a very valuable discussion and time well spent, so really appreciate all of you that participated, particularly those of you who worked to make all those presentations possible. All right, now moving on to our informational items. When we had our last meeting, we had an idea that we would have lawyers represented from both the city and the county, and that we would have a beginning of a discussion on governance in the interlocal agreement. Last week, I found that we did not have a meeting with the lawyers, and so we have put together, I think, some idea that's going to be open for discussion here. I sent out a memo saying that we, as the city, while we may remain committed to addressing the concerns of our partners as we work towards this common goal of a good transit system, enhancing mobility and economic opportunity, that we gave an example of the agreement that was done for the amendments in 2005, and we talked about the idea, or at least I spoke in the memo to say to you that I thought that that was a good process. But I think that we all know that we have differences sometimes, and I wanted to make sure that if we were going to proceed in this direction, or if there was going to be another direction. So I'm going to open the floor for comment, or a process idea.
In regard.
Mayor Bales, yes.
Thank you. In regards to a process, I think it would be beneficial not only to have all of the town managers participate, but also have the attorneys participate in that same meeting. I think that seems like a compromise to me between what everyone was considering.
All right. Any other comment?
I had trouble figuring out what was amended in when was it, 2005?
2005.
I had trouble trying to disseminate in the information that we had on the interlocal agreement, what was actually amended, how sensitive that was, and if it were a select group of managers, because I'm like Melinda, if we're going to do this, I would prefer to have all managers involved and legal representation as well.
All right. Mr. Baker or Mr. Thomas, would you explain what the topic was in 2005, please?
So what I know by reading the minutes, again, I'm Patrick Baker, City Attorney of the City of Charlotte, was that at least there was the budget process where the budget was presented to both the city and the county wanted to be out of that process, so it just went to the city. But I don't know, Brad, if there are other, I know there were more things that were involved in that as well.
Yeah, so when the interlocal was formed in 1999, after that, well, when it was initially formed, they agreed that they would have a study done after a few years to kind of understand how the process would work and see if there were ways to improve it. They had that study, I believe it was done by UNC Charlotte. And that study, I think, was completed in 2003, 2004. And then they took some of the recommendations of that study, and then they used that to make changes to the interlocal agreement. But specifically in terms of those provisions, I don't recall.
All right. So history wasn't defined as well as we'd like it to be.
So is there any possibility of getting a copy of that study?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll send that out to the voting members as well.
And if it
as
would
put
be
it on
possible, also the minutes as well.
the minutes as well as a copy of the report. Okay. So any further discussion or comment?
In 2005, we've actually got them.
Okay. So I want to just, Mayor Bales, would you propose that as a motion?
Absolutely. I would.
Thank you.
I would propose that we would approve the coming together, a meeting of not only the town managers, but also attorneys.
County manager.
And county manager, thank you very much, in discussing the interlocal agreement for the MTC.
Second.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, I'm sorry. Mr. Herms, were you raising your hand for a question?
So question/comment.
I'm sorry,
Basically slight comment.
comment? Okay.
So I just wanted to say, as the town managers and attorneys kind of get together, I do advise you also kind of be sure whenever you think about how the interlocal agreement is presently and how you'd like to have it improve or have it adjusted, just be sure that you kind of think about the citizens group as many of us are. Or it's just making sure that we are, that either, not saying have to be at those meetings, but make sure that whatever kind of comes out of it, make sure that we are kind of thought about in the process, so.
All right, thank you very much for your comment. All right, so we have a motion on the floor and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, if you're a voting member, please raise your hand if you're in favor of the motion. All right, so that passes unanimously. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is informational items that we will move to the action items that we will have. And let's see, we need to talk about calendar. These are important things during this holiday season. Calendar is always really important. So we have a recommendation that we move to our meeting in November above or be, let's see, is it on November the 15th, is that correct?
Yes, so it's moving, so it's my understanding it has been past practice to move the November meeting up a week, to advance it 1 week. And then also, out of practicality, it becomes a 1-hour meeting between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock because CRTPO, which involves many of you as well, begins at 6 o'clock on that evening. And staff has brought that recommendation simply because it has been the operating norm or practice in the past.
I think with as much as we have going on and potentially the ability to have some further discussions about the interlocal agreement, perhaps we could have that meeting on November the 15th, but instead of it being an hour-long meeting, that we probably start at 1 and then go until 4 at least, or 5. That would be to allow all of you who are members of both this committee as well as CARPO to have an opportunity. But I do think that it would be helpful for us to have a status report on this prior to, or on that day, and not have it rushed into a 1-hour meeting. So I would like to propose that we recommend that we have a meeting on November the 15th of the MTC from 1 until 4 to conduct the MTC business.
Right, and then would we have an MTC meeting at 5:30? Or is that going to be our
No,
meeting?
it would end at 4. We would not have a 5:30 meeting. So I was giving the time for people to get prepared for
I don't
CARPO.
know if this was another workshop like we had this afternoon.
Well, I don't, so is there any other idea around that? Okay, Mr. Higdon?
Can I suggest we move the conclusion of it closer to the beginning of the CARPO meeting, so we're not just hanging around for a couple hours for?
Okay, what time is CARPO start? 6?
Yeah.
6. So do you want to go from 1 until 5 or 5:30?
Or
Wait,
2
second.
until?
Wait, hang on. Don't we need to, my understanding is what happens next is that the managers and our attorney and the city's attorney and the city manager will sit down and discuss the letter that we jointly sent about our desire to renegotiate the interlocal. So today is October 25th. I don't know that we're going to be in a position to need a 4-hour meeting in 2.5 weeks. I mean, I hope we can coordinate our schedules that quickly, but why don't we, do we know that yet?
I think it's going to be tight for us to be able to pull all of that together by November 15th.
Well, I wasn't expecting it would be the only item on the agenda. So we would have our meeting.
Our regular meeting.
Our regular meeting, which we would hear appropriately from the interim, some of the discussion that we had earlier today, any reports that we would have. So it's a regular meeting. It's just how do we address it so that you're not rushing into CARPO or not being able to be available for CARPO. So I think that, Mayor Higdon, did you suggest 2 to 5?
Well, you had allocated 3 hours, so I would say 2:30 to 5:30 maybe would work.
2:30 to 5:30? Is that an option for those of you in both of these meetings? So we have a motion to have our November 15th meeting from 2:30 to 5:30. All in favor, please raise your hands. Anyone, all right, does anyone object or oppose that meeting time? And we'll be flexible. If something happens that says we don't have enough to do, or say we'll talk about pushing the beginning time, we want to be flexible and make sure that we have, if we don't have enough work to do, that we think that, I never know that, but we'll guess at it. All right, so we have a motion for our November meeting, and we've approved that time and the date. And now we have another tradition of calendar.
Right. So the second recommendation on calendar, again, holding with tradition or practice, has been to either cancel the December meeting, which would normally be held on December 27th, or if the desire is not to cancel it, then to move it to an alternate date so that it doesn't occur on December 27th.
December 25th.
That's even better, right? I think the 27th might be.
The practice has been to, the practice has been to not hold a meeting in December. That gives staff a little bit extra time to pull together our budget for presentation to the MTC in first run budget in January.
All right, so, Mayor Higdon?
I'd like to make a motion to cancel our December 27th, 2023 MPC meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? All right, we will cancel the December meeting and see people in the new year. All right, now, we've done the calendaring. The next item, we want to hear from our Transit Services Advisory Committee, and I believe Mr. Herms is going to give us a report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we had our meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we had a few presentations, one by Jessica Lanier from CATS Customer Service. So there they talked about, they kind of went overview the processes, how they kind of work with kind of dealing with complaints.
Mr. Herms, can you speak up a little bit? We really want to hear what you're saying.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Bring it closer to you. Bring it even closer.
Sorry. So we had our meeting a couple of weeks ago, and first we had Jessica Lanier from CATS Customer Service, and pretty much overviewing the process within their office, how they kind of work with the metrics when it comes to customers, when it comes to customer service, how they may escalate certain customer service issues, and how they kind of work with social media complaints. And so during which they went over some of their data and stats about some of the overview year-to-date kind of customer service issues, some of which obviously being things such as there being a late bus, which is no surprise, which obviously means just kind of when you're kind of thinking about staffing levels, making sure that those are getting pumped up to be able to make sure that level decreases, and then the next two are typical run of the mill like STS operator related things, or a passenger was passed by a bus. So those are things to just be kind of wary of, just because from a stats wise, those are kind of larger issues from a data perspective. Then we went through the service change proposition. So looking at the 57 and the 235, so that's Archdale, South Park, and Goodwill. So looking at alternative ways to be able to make sure we can both provide the appropriate headways for them, but also being able to serve the communities in West Charlotte effectively. And then also Pamela White kind of talked about her newly formed role within customer experience and how that differs for customer service, and how it's a new approach, and kind of thinking about from a more proactive stance, kind of from a customer standpoint, kind of thinking about the kind of the more holistic through and through the customer experience from start to finish, not just one issue within a particular bus ride. So went through overview from those, and we'll be kind of talking about more about as she kind of grows within her role. So that's very exciting to be hearing in future meetings. And last but not least, we welcome a new member from the town of Matthews by the name of Betra. She is an excellent new addition. She brings in a lot of perspectives, including talking about issues within outward communication from a customer standpoint, how that might need to be improved, kind of talk about kind of the 64X. So she definitely brings in a great perspective. So I do thank the town of Matthews for bringing her as a new member onto TSAC. And that is it for my last one as co-chair. So stay tuned.
Any questions for Mr. Herms? Hearing none. Thank you very much for your report. And now we'll have a report from the chair of the Citizens Transit Advisory Group, Mr. Tillman. Oh, okay.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the commission. I'm going to be doing this month since this is Mr. Tillman's last month.
Wait a minute, I was going to get to that.
Oh, well, sorry. Spoiler.
Okay. No, okay.
So first off, I'd like to thank him for his dedicated service and his hard work, especially through the COVID times. He's going to be a tough act for me and whoever else will be a co-chair. He'll be a tough act to follow for us. We had a discussion during our meeting of sort of a restatement of what our responsibilities were as CTAG, and also along the lines of that discussion had a discussion of how TSAC and CTAG could begin to work more efficiently and coordinate our work a little bit more. We also had discussion of the FY25 budget, just kind of getting some background information on that and what's to come there. And then finally, we had a little bit of a discussion around bus service, some issues that are continuing to be addressed. Mr. Cagle addressed those and told us, just essentially stand by, they're working on it. But bottom line is we're continuing to notice issues with bus service, especially on the express routes. And that was basically it in a nutshell.
Well, thank you. And I want to add the appreciation from the MTC members to you, Mr. Tillman. I think that you have served with such dignity and patience, perhaps, for all of us, and we really appreciate that. I would like to ask if you have any comments that you'd like to make for the group. We're glad to listen to you as this is your last meeting.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor Lyles, and all the members of MTC. Seems like I've been here for probably a decade, but I know it
I think it's about right.
It's been close, but I have absolutely enjoyed, number one, getting a significant education on the transportation situations, positive, negative, and otherwise, that have occurred in our city from prior to my arrival in 1998 and through this time. And although nothing is ever perfect as we seek it to be, certainly we have made significant improvements, and there's never a good deal for everybody. If everybody's upset, that means the deal is probably right for everybody. So certainly I look forward to seeing what happens, and I really have enjoyed my time serving the city and look forward to doing it in other measures as well.
Again, our appreciation and gratefulness. So those are all of the items on our agenda for tonight. So this, Mr. Knox?
Madam
Mayor
Chair,
Knox?
if I could, I would like to acknowledge the presence of former Charlotte Mayor Richard Vinroot in the room. So.
Well, Mayor Vinroot is part of our legacy and our ability. I have to say, the last time that I saw Mayor Vinroot, he was celebrating a very controversial issue, much like the ones that we have on our table tonight, when he actually had the vision to say the consolidation of CMPD and the county police department was going to make a difference. And 30 years later, here we are, and it was your vision and your action that made it possible. He had a lot of support as well from the number of staff people that were working in this area. And I just want to say that without vision, we don't do so well. And you gave us that vision, and we really appreciate that, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Wonderful community and wonderful local government. I've been proud to have my association with it. I hope I didn't mess it up too much.
I doubt seriously if you could do that. So with that, unless there is another item to come forward, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.